and thought I'd do a live stream, see what we could do with this. And the last two live streams I had seemed to upset everyone. They say the old Kloisenberg, he would upset the religious Jews by saying you have to be nice to the secular Jews, and he would upset the secular Jews by saying you have to be religious. And so too here, I made videos talking on two subjects. Out, support Israel without being a Zionist. And that seemed to upset the left. And then I made a video about the need that the Republican Party needs to, hi Sheldon, how you doing, Shalom, Aleichem Shalom, Shalom, that the need that the American political right has to do more outreach to the Muslim world, and that upset a lot of people on the right. So I want to talk a little bit about a lot of these issues in a little bit more in depth. Also, Shalom, by the way. So the plan is we'll be driving out to your area. So we won't need the help for the Strymel box. So we got to figure out how we're doing it, because we got a lot of things. And of course, also we ask please daven for our turtle shemp, our tortoise, to come back. But hopefully the plan is that it'll work out, that we'll be able to make it to Wisconsin for Shabbos, Parshas Re'eh. So, and hopefully we'll be able to plan something nice, a nice dish or something. And also, I don't know if the ladies there would want a shear for my wife also while we're there, but we also have to figure out, but that we can talk privately. But we're looking forward to Shabbos together. So hopefully we can plan it out nice and make it very nice. Who's here? Looks like Smutrus is going to topple Bibi later in the week. Bibi passed the Zamir plan, so it's over. The party is meeting next day. So Otzma is following. All right, it's not my. I don't know anything. All that stuff is not on my radar as far as Israeli politics, and I really don't care. You know, what's important really is the Black Gemara. That's the most important thing in the world. Is to learn Torah, do mitzvahs. I remember Rabbi Weinberger, it's all his own side. He once gave a shir, I think it was for Slichas. Hi Wesley, welcome. And he talked about the wind from all the different sides that blows and tries to knock over the flour. And so you have from the north and the south. The north represents wealth, according to, because the showbread, the shulchan, the table of the showbread, was on the north side. And then the south represents wisdom, which could also be the secular wisdom and the obsessions that many Jewish people have with those things. So you have the northern wind and the southern wind. And then you have the western wind that you want, the western culture. And then he said the eastern wind, he didn't want to talk about the many Jews who fell into the world of the Far East, which was more common maybe in the 1970s. People know the joke about an old bubby from Brooklyn, Sheepshead Bay, wherever, Brighton Beach, or Flatbush, wherever. She makes this trek to go to the to somewhere in Tibet to go see a guru. She has an appointment to see a guru, and she climbs up the mountain, and finally she has an audience with the guru, and she sees the guru, and she said, "Marvin, that's enough of this Mishigas already. Come home." That was the old days. But the otherwise, in addition to that, what Rabbi Weinberger said that was more pressing is the eastern wind, that everything is Israeli, and it's Israeli politics and Israeli culture. And the truth is, the most important thing is the Torah. Open up Bava Kama. That's That's our whole life. So anyway, nonetheless, it seems that I upset both the left and the right, which is good. It shows that I'm an independent thinker. At least I try to be. But I wanted to discuss about Israel and the so-called Palestinians. Now, again, I preface this that I am from the anti-Zionist camp. My children learn in Satmar schools. I have nothing to do with the state of Israel. But just because I oppose the idea of a Jewish state at this point in Jewish history, before the coming of the Messiah and the coming of Elijah the prophet and so forth, as has been promised in Scripture, that doesn't mean that you go along with the falsehoods. And that's the big mistake a lot of the Torah Kartech ever get into, which I understand where they're coming from. I remember talking to them about this, and they explained, this is Shtadlonis, this is the same thing with Yaakov Avinu bowing to Esav, and Rabbi Yochanan and Zakkai bowing to Vespasian. And so too, if that's the way that it has to be. But the truth is, it doesn't really have to be that way. First of all, we're Americans, we should be patriotic Americans, and Israel is an American ally. So like I always say, I'm not a Zionist, but I support Israel because they are an ally to my country, to the United States of America. And that's what it comes down to. But there's more than that. This whole idea of the Palestinian nationalism is nonsense. And the question you have to ask anyone who supports Palestinian nationalism is, was Palestine occupied under the Ottoman Empire? Was Gaza occupied when it was part of Egypt before 1967? Was what we call Judea and Samaria, with the biblical names, where they call the West Bank, or when that was under Jordanian rule, was that occupied? If the answer is no, so then give Gaza back to Egypt, give Jordan back, give the West Bank back to Jordan, or give the whole thing back to the Ottomans. But the Ottomans lost the war. Lost one, and so England took care of it until they could figure out what to do with it. And they tried their best to figure something out. And originally, when they made the Balfour Declaration, it was not to make an independent Jewish state, but rather a homeland for the Jewish people. So it's two different things. So the Or Sameach, Mayor Simcha of Dvinsk, he said that the fear of the oaths passed because not as the Zionists understand it, religious Zionists understand it, that somehow there's that the heter. That's not what he said. He didn't say that it was a heter of the oaths. He said the ra'adas hashvus, the fear of the oaths, meaning to say that because the Balfour Declaration was not declaring an independent Jewish state, in his opinion, it did not violate the oaths that are recorded in the Book of Canticles, the Book of Song of Solomon, which tell us that we have to wait patiently for God to arouse His love. And if we don't, we're sworn to not do so. We're sworn by the deer and the antelope of the field, because this is the deer and the antelope are free to the hunters. So too, that's the consequences. And we saw that happen once the violation took place, which Satmarov obviously interpreted differently, because he understood that even a machshava, even a thought of violating the oaths, is akin to atheism, and that or agnosticism, and that atheism and agnosticism is worse than idolatry, and so therefore it's a lot of issues, you know. So that's what we have here. How can I get this off of my face? All right. Anyway, start Q&A. That's what. So that's part of the story here. Is that the whole idea of violating the oath, but nonetheless, again, just because we have this idea, the violation of the oaths, doesn't mean that we therefore accept the lies of the so-called Palestinians. In the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 32, it says, "You angered me with atheism, and therefore with a no God. Therefore I punished you below Am with a non-people." That's exactly the prophecy of the Palestinian, so-called Palestinian people. Palestine is merely the name of the region of the Holy Land of Eretz Yisrael that the Romans gave Syria, Palestina. Some even say that the name Palestina, comes from the word for wrestler, and that since the word Yisrael means he who wrestles with God, that actually Palestine is a translation of Israel into Latin. There are those who say like that. So in any event, the people who call themselves Palestinians, the only ones who are really Palestinians, of which there are actually many, are the grandchildren of Jews who were forced to convert to Islam, whether under the Ottoman Empire or by the pushing of the Waqf, even under the British protectorate time in the interwar period. So therefore, we see already then that was present. So therefore, this is the issue. So, but most of the Arabs who were in the Holy Land, they came there from Egypt, from Jordan, from Saudi Arabia, and from Turkey. The Turkish are not Arab, the Turks. And then a great deal of them are people of Jewish ancestry. They might even actually be Hasidic Jews, who, although I don't like that term in general, who were forced to convert to Islam. I know people like that personally. I remember I was a Rav out of town, Richmond, Virginia, and there were many interfaith events we were invited to. We were at an event in a church where 1 week we went to the mosque, 1 week we went to the church, 1 week they went to the Reform Temple. This was on the south side of Richmond. And I didn't go to the event at the temple, but I was at the event at the church and the mosque. And at the church, a tall fellow came up to us and said, I want to convert to Judaism. I was there with Rabbi Asher Meza, many people know. Two of us were there at this event. This fellow, and he said, Rabbi Meza, I've been trying to get a hold of you. I want to convert to Judaism. So I said, come Shabbos, come daven, you'll see if you like it, what it is, So then he's there for a few weeks, and I mentioned something and I asked him, I said, why do you want to convert to Judaism? He said, well, my mother's Jewish. I said, well, if your mother's Jewish, you don't need to convert it. He was from Jordan, He said his family were from Hebron. And he knew his grandmother, and he would ask his mother, why doesn't grandma come to the mosque on Friday for Jumu'ah? Why does she light candles Friday night? Why does she go to the cemetery? Why do we do things other people don't do? And she says, please don't tell anybody, it's a secret, but we're Jewish. He said, well, then I want to be Jewish. His father, who was also from a tribe like that, so there was one tribe, the Hebroni tribe, and one, the Al-Quds tribe from Jerusalem. So the Al-Quds tribe were converted to Islam in the 1890s, and the Hebroni tribe was in 1929. He didn't want to stay after the pogroms in Hebron, were forced to convert to Islam. And it's really an unfortunate story what happened there, because there were non-Zionist and anti-Zionist Jews in Hebron who were who were killed and who were forced to convert to Islam also because of the Zionists. Because the Zionists started to make issues about the Koisel, about the Wailing Walls, and on that account, these pogroms took place in Hebron. In Hebron, there were attacks on the Jewish community. And the rabbis begged the Zionists, get out of here. What are you doing here? They said, well, we're here to protect you. They said, you're not protecting us, you're causing problems. So, that's the story. So anyway, and that's what happened. And Jews, unfortunately, were murdered, massacred in Hebron because of this, because of the Zionist instigation. So, and as we said, unfortunately, many Jews were forced to convert to Islam at threat of death if they wanted to stay or be banished from Hebron. And so many chose, because they didn't have any, they wouldn't let them sell their house. They just chased them out of their homes where they'd been for centuries, you know. And this is what happened. So anyway, this is the point that I'm bringing out here, is that the people who were Zionists, Aleichem Shalom Joseph, that's the true story. So where did it come up? Even Arafat himself was Egyptian. So where did it come from, this whole movement of the Palestinian nationalism? The Soviets originally supported Israel because there were a lot of Marxists in the Zionist camps. But when they saw that America was supporting Israel, then the Soviets began to support the Arabs. And then they came up with an idea, particularly after both Egypt and Jordan lost territory during the war, the 6-Day War. So then they came up with this idea. It started a little bit before that, of the Palestinian National Movement, Palestinian Liberation Organization. All of this was made up by the Soviets. So you ask here, Maizali Aroni or B'nai Yoli. Never heard B'nai Yoli. So for a long time, I tried to stay away from the politics. So I had children in both moistus, both by Reb Zalman Leib and by Reb Baron. And to a certain extent, I still do, because so I try to stay neutral with that. I like them both, and I have some friends from B'nai world too, but I'm not as comfortable with them. But in general, I have. Recently, I haven't really gone to either of them, but that's, I'm just international. I don't like to take sides with politics with that. Ich mach Shabbos für sich allein. Koblenz Eruv für sich allein. So, but for the most part now, all year my kids learn by Baron's Meisters for practical reasons. And before I had, but now in the summer, also for practical reasons, there one of my kids is by Zaman Leib, a shtickle, day camp, and others are by Zon. So we're all over the place, you know. So anyway, I'm home now. Um, so what do I see the answer? So I think the best answer for Gaza is Egypt should take it. But now that Israel's talking about taking it back, the truth of the matter is they have to annex it. Why did they call it occupied? It's occupied because Israel never annexed it. So they have to annex the land, and that, Lemais, I think, would be the best thing, practically speaking, for those children there in Gaza. If Israel would take over, Israel would make sure they get fed and everything. It's the Hamas who are starving those kids, not Israel. Israel isn't starving anybody. Israel is fighting a war. But if Israel would take it over and it's their own territory, they would become Israeli Arabs, and that would, in a certain sense, also be the most anti-Zionist thing to do, because if you have a two-state solution, that's more Zionism. But you have a one-state solution. I've said this for many years, but have it be a Western state with democratic, Republican values. I think particularly the best way is if Israel annexes the land and forms some form of federalism. Because if you have a weak central government that's non-sectarian, and then probably the best advice I would give, even though it's none of my business, I'm an American. Best as a Jew, it's not my business what they do there. I have a religious devotion to the Holy Land. There's nothing political about it. But as an American, maybe I have an American bias, but I think that would be the best way. Make, I would say, probably 5 states and 3 Jewish majority and 2 Arab majority, something like that, as kind of a safeguard to protect the civil rights of everybody involved. And really, I think the best to Egypt, but I don't think Egypt is going to take it. Why didn't they take it in 1982 when they took back the rest of Sinai? It's just to make problems. So that's a little bit of the story. Not sure. Any other questions, comments, anything else we want to talk about? So one or the other. For sure, we don't give it to Hamas. Hamas don't get a state. But if they would make some, or like they were talking about, the Hebron Council wanted to have their own, sovereignty. That might be something that could work because they seem like good, reasonable, peaceful people. But still, the problem with that is that it remains a Jewish state. Israel, as a Western state, it's a wonderful place. But as a Jewish state, there should not be such a thing as a Jewish state. So that's why I believe Israel should annex the land, and like you said, re-educate the children. That's very necessary. And also maybe try to find which ones of them are Jewish and bring them back to Yiddishkeit. That can't be done by the government, but there should be ministries to try to bring the people who are Jewish, who are like B'nai Anusim, the same way that many of the B'nai Anusim from the Hispanic countries are coming back to Yiddishkeit, to Judaism. The B'nai Anusim among the community that identifies as Palestinian should also be brought back into Torah. But like Meir Kahane used to say, if Arafat converted tomorrow, he'd be just as Jewish as Kahane. So also try to be more welcoming. If people, they live in Eretz Yisrael and they Torah mitzvahs, we can be makar of them too, to be megayer. So any comments or questions or anything else, um, so all right. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, comment. And we're supposed to use this sticker thing. I don't know if anybody has anything to share. All right. Big question. Are you subscribed? Respond to that. All right. I better go inside. It seems like my family needs some help. All right. Hatzlacha Rabbi. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, comment. And we'll see you all later. All right. How do I turn this thing off? Again, any other questions or anything? This Wesley guy. I'm sorry, Wesley. I'm not going to be responding. It's all too much, all this that you wrote, and I wish you well. I wish you for Shlema. All right. God bless you. See you later.